Hey Cliff, how's it going?
Good. How are you, Jeff?
I'm doing well. So today I'm joined by Cliff Hawkins, the Senior Director of Revenue Operations at Levels AI. For the audience, would you mind introducing yourself and what is Levels AI?
Absolutely. And thanks for the quick intro, Jeff. I'm a longtime operator, been in several different companies, both big and small, and also spent some time in private equity. Most recently, I've been in a year with a company called Level AI, where we provide insights and help automate the contact center and customer experience operations at any company. We have a lot of companies in e-com, retail, healthcare, and other industries. So I lead the revenue operations organization. So anything that pertains to pre or post sale teams, from looking at territory design, ICP, all the way to the buyer's journey and capturing all of the metrics and analytics, and reporting for the leadership team.
So you have a wide remit, which is pretty common with a lot of RevOps leaders that I speak with. I'd imagine that there's a ton of infrastructure and tooling that you have to use in order to be effective in your role. I'm curious, what do you think is working and what's not working in today's go-to-market space? Because I do feel like it's more crowded than ever and getting more crowded in terms of the options that are out there. And so I personally can't stay on top of it. I'm curious about what you think about the state of go-to-market tech.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of tools out there, and you and I have talked about that, right? And what's great about this point in time is you have the ability to really test some of the more innovative solutions that give you quite an array of data and things that you need from an operations standpoint. Clay is one that we use in terms of um, yeah, data enrichment, messaging, campaigns, and it's used across sales and marketing. That's one. But what it comes down to is also getting the right intelligence back, and as well as data hygiene in Salesforce. And we use Salesforce. We've built actually AI workflows, and we've automated summaries across Gong and Outreach and email, every interaction that gives us the insights back into our CRM. And that's really what was a big factor for any pre and post sale person. So think about a CSM that now we closed won a deal, inherits a net new customer. They don't have to get briefed by the AE. They could just go into Salesforce and understand what happened. The summary will give all of the key points in terms of their current challenges, what they purchased, the last engagement, all of that.
So I think that makes great sense in spirit, but I'm curious about some of the difficulties in actually executing that, right? So some of these new toolings are at the frontier of incorporating AI. Did you have to build or buy? Like how did you deploy some of these capabilities with your team?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one key thing that what we good and bad, we implemented Gong. We got rid of outreach. And we were trying to get a platform that helped us across um, um, outbound engagement. So like what they have is Engage, Gong Engage. And we use their forecasting tools. So typically you're either using Salesforce forecasting, which is not that great, or you go into a high-powered other solution like Clary, which was a little bit more overblown for what we need at our size of our company. And so we use the CI, obviously with Gong, the Gong Engage, and the forecasting solution. And it's been helpful, but the only thing with that is it doesn't really give us everything that we wanted, right? So they've built out their own AI summaries. But when we compare to even the Zoom recordings, the output was missing, right? And some of the flag components of what was um, identified by Gong, like risks for the opportunities, were actually done tagged in error. So in fact, it didn't build the right trust across our AEs and our sales team, and we had to sort of build that back. And now that we are now using the tool to grab all of that data, but we've built our own workflows to synthesize and automate our own AI summaries into Salesforce. So we've actually built our own solution.
Okay, very interesting. So you have a situation where you have some product and coverage gaps with your existing solution, and so you're covering for those gaps using some AI workflows. Um, how do I mean, I'm guessing your team is quite technical in nature, but you have workflows usually embedded inside of your tooling. But how did they learn to go out and use, third-party automation tooling and then connect it to an LLM and write it back? Like, how are you as a leader stretching your team to develop those skills?
Um, to be honest, we are actually using another innovative tool called Swift.ai to help do that. And how we found the solutions like that is really through our RevOps community and our own peers, and really determine what's really working and not working. So when we're trying to look and identify like how can we grab the right signals beyond just clay, right? We were recommended another solution that of POCUS, in fact, which we want to try. We have yet to try and test it out, but I think what I'm going back to is really getting feedback from your peers and colleagues and RevOps, and really working together. And as you test on your own, right, and build your own or integrate your own, getting the feedback from the community is really big.
So appreciate the shout out to communities. I always find that when I need recommendations on specific tooling, our peers are there to help us as well. So with these conversational intelligence tools, you're sort of assessing what's already in front of you. But I'm
Mhm.
curious about, what about the conversations that are not in front of you yet, right? Like the concept of generating pipeline, going outbound. I'm curious about some of the challenges that we're all confronting in the industry. The number one thing I hear from CROs is I don't have enough pipeline.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious about your take on, what is it that we're all facing in go-to-market around this pipeline drought?
I think so. We've heard the comment like outbound is dead, right? I'd like to say that that isn't the case. We've actually proved that otherwise. It's the type of approach that you need to take and what you need to test. For what I learned early on when I was at Salesforce, this will date me back though. What I learned early on is what you need to do is really test all the time, each week. And out of the 10 things that you're testing, there will be one thing that will work. And you triple down on the th one thing that's working. And if I go back to like our outbound, it comes back to what's working in our messaging, our approach. We test with different campaigns, different tactics. In fact, we've tested different promotions as well. And for the things that aren't working, we just kill it. But for the things that are working, we share across our broader team, our AEs and SDRs, and we continue to build on top of that. And that's what will drive the right momentum, the right output. So when I go back, I have to say like test on your own, and definitely triple down on the things that are working and kill quickly what isn't.
So I think there's a spirit of one, constantly developing go-to-market strategies, right? Because you have to have multiple options at your disposal to test. And then second, you want to have, what do you think about the argument of you need to have a large enough TAM to run a set of experiments that you can then test? Does that fall flat in a market where you have kind of a limited TAM?
I think when I say test, I'll go back to outbound, right? Being very personalized, and we have all the tools to actually get that information for you. So be personalized, and when I say test to like your ICP. So, I could really say my TAM is all of the, Fortune 1000 companies, but when you narrow it down to who your true buyer personas are and your actual ICP, it's a much smaller pool. But definitely apply that across the hyper personalization across those different buyers, right? And to answer your question, you don't need a huge TAM to do that. But definitely monitor and continue to determine what's working and what's not working, and apply that across your different accounts and your ICP.
So I think one, stay highly relevant. Two, niche your message and your offer so that it has the highest propensity to resonating with the prospect. I think that's one of the things that maybe we're not doing so well on average, and that's what leaves the exceptional to do extremely well, is because they do excel at those categories. You and I talked about earlier, the concept of driving into San Francisco, for example, from the airport. You're bombarded by all these billboards, and the language that they're using, it sounds very similar to one another, but it's different companies. In the spirit of like personalization and relevance, how do you stand out in a seemingly more crowded market among vendors?
It comes down to how you are positioning yourself and your message, right? So, um, think about what are you trying to solve for? In terms of the challenge for your buyer, and is that message clear when you're displaying that or sharing that, or when you're approaching to your prospect? Is that very clear? If it's not, if you just sound like you're just, providing, words that are like, what I say, like AI and things like that, just keywords, things like that, that really are more generic, then it won't resonate with a buyer. And like it will, like as you mentioned, it'll feel like I'm just going through all those billboards and I still don't understand what that company does. So be very clear in your message in terms of what you're trying to solve for. And is the pain and that challenge really, does that resonate with your prospect that you're reaching out to?
So I'm thinking about a paradigm shift. Let's change gears a little bit,
Mhm.
focusing on you and your team. I'm finding that there's a mantra of trying to do more with less. And what I've seen generally the last 2 years was layoffs. But now it's not necessarily layoffs. It's just that you see a lack of new openings. And so the
Mhm.
folks on teams have to do more with proverbially less. I'm curious, when you think about doing more with less as a theme. Do you think that's is here to stay? And if so, what can we in RevOps do about it?
No, I definitely know that everyone across go-to-market, across any team will be asked to do more with less. And I think it's fair because we're empowered with more tools today than we've ever had, right? So when you think about, just a few years ago when an AE was doing research, they'd have to web crawl themselves and read the 10K, then copy and paste that and you know, embed that into their message. We have tools that will do that in minutes, right? You just have to either build the right prompt, you could do that in Chat GPT, that's available to anyone, or you actually can test other tools that are out there to help you with this. So that's just one example of like, the time it takes to do outbound with the appropriate research. But when I think about even my job on analytics and metrics, instead of analyzing 1,000 calls inaccurately, you could just get that accurately now with tools. I could build a prompt that says, "Hey, analyze every deal for this under 100K and have it for deals that are over 100K," and I get those answers in minutes. Versus myself creating those pivot tables and going deal by deal and analyzing what worked and didn't work. So I think there's definitely a lift in productivity across every person. Now it's what we do with the extra time, right? And where we need to, as we're more empowered, definitely focus on where we add value in our day to day.
So, we're recording this late into the year. It's definitely planning season. I'm curious about when you're incorporating this thought around adding new productivity tools. Are you seeing an ask to change the ratios between roles? For example, span of control between managers to reps or AEs supporting SDR supporting AEs. Are you planning for kind of a little bit of a lift and shift with those ratios?
I think every company will be different, but to answer your question, yes. But I think there are other roles that are cropping up as well, right? So we've all known of this, and like, do I hire, do I create a go-to-market engineer, right? Or that help me continue to build the things I want to do to help us scale and automate further. Um, or in terms of sales, do we really instead of hiring a direct seller, do I get another solution engineer, right? To focus on the technical side of things. So I would probably say yes, but there's probably also another focus on other roles and newer roles to help support the teams in general.
Do you want to pick your brain on the go-to-market engineer? One, what is it? And two, is it an accretive role to the roles that we already see in revenue operations, or is it, piece and parceling components of our role into one centralized new title?
I think everyone in RevOps will probably be a hybrid at some point of what, and going to the definition of go-to-market engineer, it's building applications or building things in-house that will provide automation in RevOps. So one of the things I mentioned earlier is that we integrated a tool, or we could have built our own, where we created AI workflows that grabbed every engagement and interaction across every platform and system, whether it's Gong, and we still have Outreach, by the way, Outreach, Gong, email, all the calendar invites, every activity and task, event, engagement is built into this workflow, then provides an AI summary to our go-to-market teams based on every trigger net new engagement. So like what I think more teams are likely going to do some elements of that, and the go-to-market engineer will be the role to be pioneer that for the company. So that's just one example, but further ways to help automate, right? Whether it is in that instance, that's more like insights and account and deal insights. But how do we think about reporting or um, or more analytics or even helping with direct outbound or there's so many different elements because RevOps has such a wide span of control where we touch in my instance, we touch both pre and post sale. So there's definitely more opportunity to help automate.
Now, I always ask this at the end of the show, but what's one piece of advice you'd like to leave for the go-to-market community?
Um, the I definitely leverage my peers, my colleagues, and the community for recommendations and I to ideate to further innovate and keep myself on ahead, right, in terms of what's working and what's not working. I highly recommend everyone to ask your peers, especially in this AI transformation where things are moving so quickly every day. And there's newer solutions or solutions and net new features are cropping up. How do we keep on top of it? Um, definitely leverage the community and leverage your network.
Now, for those who want to connect with you directly, Cliff, where can they do so, and where can they learn more about Level AI?
They could reach and find my information. They could definitely reach directly to me on LinkedIn, and they could ask me for more information on Level, or they could check out our website and on Level AI.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Cliff.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it.